So if you had the power to change the world, but you knew that the world wasn't ready for the change, would you still use that power? Well, the answer to that question is pretty complicated depending on how you look at it, in my opinion. Earlier this year, Adult Swim released a new show known as Common Side Effects that aired on Adult Swim and HBO Max, and it really answers the question or explains how complicated the answer to that question really can be. The show follows Michael Cuso, a mycologist who just came back from Peru with the Blue Angel mushroom plant, which is a plant that can cure any illness or any type of injury. So upon his return to the US, he reconnects with his old friend Francis Applewhite, who now works at Ruticle Pharmaceuticals, which is a huge healthcare company that's looking for their next big drug to sell. But the problem is the existence of such a plant is kind of a bad thing, as it can put a lot of healthcare companies out of business and could really affect the world at a global scale. So of course Marshall tries to hide it, but eventually his good willingness comes out to him. He decides he wants to start giving out this drug for free. Now this causes a lot of issues, as both the government's been looking for him, healthcare companies, and people back in Peru are still looking for him as well. And his so-called friend Francis is actually working for one of the companies that wants Marshall dead. But in typical fashion, end up coming together despite their differences and realize they want to help shape the world become a better place. Now you may be wondering, how does this whole plot really tie back in a question I asked before on how if you had the power to change the world, would you really want to change it despite the possible problems it could cause? Now it's a known fact that America is a capitalist country with a large margin of its profits coming from the healthcare system. So imagine something could come into the healthcare system and tear completely all down. What happens to the rest of the citizens in the country? Which effectively means we're going to go back into a huge depression, even worse than the 2008 one most likely. But forget about the whole financial part of it. There's a lot of ethical reasons as to why this may or may not be the best thing to share out. Firstly, the mushroom is something that's made naturally. It's not nothing that's man-made. And if it's nothing that's man-made, who really does have dibs or control over it, as it's nature's product? Therefore, who really has the ability to control who does and doesn't get it? And who should have the ability to control who doesn't get it? At the end of the day, no one really owns it. And another ethical question about this drug is that, does everybody really deserve it? Because I'm not gonna lie, I do believe it's a drug that's beneficial for everybody, but at the same time, are we saying we're gonna let someone like Diddy have the ability to keep going in this life? But there's no way we're gonna let some of these Arkham Asylum inmates have the ability to be able to keep living longer, or at least be able to dodge the death they were supposed to have. Now, I understand that sounds pretty cruel, as we should be able to be focusing on having everyone reform and come back to our society, but at the same time, you did what you did, bro. You did what you did. The problem that could arise from letting everyone be able to take this drug is war. If you really think about it, wars will last a lot longer, as anyone who's at the brink of death could be brought back immediately and ready to fight again. I'm pretty sure the human brain can handle the trauma of being blown up, brought back to life, blown up, brought back to life, stabbed, brought back to life, and having that happen in a cycle over and over and over again. And speaking of war, the plant was found in Peru, and Peru is its own country. Therefore, we're technically stealing from Peru, and a war could happen between the both of us just because of that. So yeah, when it comes to the war aspect of the plant, we're completely fucked. I'm being honest. It's over for us. It's GG's. Now, besides all this evidence proven here, would you still want to help or try to save the world if you know all this could happen just because of that one action you thought could be beneficial to everybody? Now, besides all this philosophical stuff, I'm trying to get over the 5-minute mark with this video, so we're going to just talk about how great the show is and why it's pretty underrated for no reason. Visually, the show is completely stunning, with its animations being so fluid and lifelike that it feels like you're going through an actual shroom trip while you're watching a show about shrooms, which is pretty coincidental, but I think it's actually done purposefully. Now, the parallels between this show and real life is pretty unmatched, as most shows tend to shy away from putting too much pressure on themselves by mentioning some big company or something, but this show makes it pretty clear who they're referring to when they talk about certain things. Anyways, chat, I guess that's it for the video. Like and subscribe for real. I'm trying to get a mic. This is my first video back in some time, I'm not gonna lie, so I'm a little rusty, so this video might not do the best, but God willingly it does. Anyways, y'all, enjoy y'all day, stay blessed.